Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome back to another minigame ranking video. We have officially moved on out of the GameCube era of Mario Party, and now we're officially in the era of motion control, as we hit up Mario Party 8. And since this was the first Mario Party on the Wii console, you can bet that motion control will most certainly be a thing here. But, how well did this game utilize the motion control? Well, that's where this list comes in, I guess you could say. The minigames we'll be examining for this ranking will be as follows. 4-player minigames, 1 vs 3 minigames, 2 vs 2 minigames, battle minigames, duel minigames, the 3 random challenge minigames, all the extra minigames in the extra zone, and the final boss minigame. Yeah, they removed some of the categories this time, and for honestly good reason. Although the best reason is that I have much less to rank this time, as we only have 73 minigames. It's still a really high number, don't get me wrong, but hey, sometimes less is more. Also, in regards to the duel minigames, since some of them are 4-player 2 vs 2 and battle games as well, I'm not counting them twice. I'll consider their placement indicative of both their variations, but largely their more common iteration. So, let's get this going, guys. We have a lot of Wiimote waggling to do, and time is most certainly of the essence. I hope you enjoy the video, and if you want to give your own thoughts on the list and changes you would have made, please do so in the comments section below, but please do so in a constructive manner. Thank you for your time, and let's get this started. Number 73. Last place is a very dirty job, but one minigame has to do it. And why not a game that's incredibly similar to another game I incredibly despise? You're the Bob-omb is basically a simultaneous version of Bowser's Big Blast, while also kind of being like Get a Rope and Pitfall as well. You and your opponent randomly pick a plunger each round, and the game keeps going until someone detonates the bomb. There's not much to say other than it's luck-based, and you have no control over your fate here, and that's never fun for a duel minigame. Number 72, cut from the team. If the last minigame wasn't bad enough, we have another Bowser's Big Blast clone, and of course as a battle game, where players take turns cutting ropes until everyone but one player is eliminated. The ropes that launch players out of the game are completely randomized, so you have no idea what's the winning move here. And unlike Big Blast and Merry Go Chomp, the arena doesn't reset after each elimination. The game goes on until all eliminations happen, which does make your odds of survival worse the longer it goes on. I hate playing this game, but I'm cutting it a small bit of slack over the previous one, just because it's a battle game, which means second place and third place at least gives some coin refunds. Number 71, Cardiators. It's deckhands from Mario Party 7, but a little more interesting because of less players, and the enemy animations you'll see during the game are pretty charming in their own right. It's still luck-based though, so I don't think it's worth celebrating too much. Number 70, Treacherous Tightrope. Motion control, when it's used properly, can actually make a minigame feel pretty immersive. Here's an example where it is not. While I feel like the goal of this minigame's control scheme is pretty self-explanatory, sometimes it seems like the motion control just doesn't want to work for me. You balance the Wiimote in a horizontal position as you move forward to the goal, tilting it in slightly different directions depending on how your character is leaning on the tightrope, while also tilting it forward to move forward. However, I don't know if it's just because my Wiimote is getting on in years, but I swear it just doesn't seem like it properly registers my movements for this minigame. And this was a problem I had even back in the old days when I first got the game. So I think it's more of a case of the sensor bar just being incredibly picky here. Because of that, I just can't seem to score very many W's in this one, and as a result, it's one of my least favorite minigames. And it's a shame because this one wasn't really a bad concept when you think about it. Number 69, Speedy Graffiti. Here's another game that feels pretty bad with motion controls, but at least for this one, it's more playable. It's just a lot harder to master without cheese strats. What makes this one difficult is the fact that you need to trace the shape pictured on your stone tablet, using your Wiimote like a pointer as you move around your brush. And while that's simple in theory, there are a few problems that arise from this. Much like the last game, sensor issues could cause some hiccups in your execution, but more detrimental is that this minigame is more dependent on speed than accuracy, as the player that traces the most shapes acceptably will be the winner of this minigame. It just doesn't feel good to play this one, and as I mentioned, yeah, you can cheese this by shaking the Wiimote wildly, but for me, even when I do that, I have trouble because then the sensor bar starts acting up as well, and it just makes this game feel kind of bleh for me no matter what I do. I honestly rather this be judged more like Crazy Cutter or Trace Race if I'm being truthful. But like this, it's not a great minigame. Number 68, Eye on the Prize. With exception to maybe the luck-based minigames, this is probably the duel minigame I'm hoping not to get the most. It starts off fine, but when you get to the later stages of this game, it just gets way too fast, and I do not like depending on motion controls at those speeds, just being honest. Number 67, Rudder Madness. How can I put this eloquently? I'd rather watch Dirt than play this incredibly boring minigame. Number 66, Chump Rope. While I do like hot rope jump concepts, I just don't think this works very well for a 1 vs 3 minigame. It's way too easy for the solo player to win, and what makes this worse is that the team of 3 move the Wiimote to jump, which is just a terrible idea, especially during those moments where the Wiimote and sensor bar have a mind of their own. Number 65, Swervin' Skies. This gives me vibes of Mario Party 7's Balloonatic, but with reversed rolls and motion controls, and I already wasn't a huge fan of Balloonatic as it is. The motion control isn't terrible, but can feel pretty mindless at times, and the single player has a lot of work to do here in order to win. Number 64, Thrash and Crash. Never really been too crazy about this game. There is potential here, but still feels pretty free for the solo player, since the team of 3's movement with the Wiimote can feel a little stiff. And sometimes it can be hard to know or react to what's coming up since it's an auto-scroller. Number 63, Fruit Picker. You pick fruit. Number 62, Pour to Score. You pour sand. Number 61, Stampede. You stamp stuff. Okay, seriously now, I'm putting these 3 games together because they just seem kind of randomly put into the game. You only play these games in the story mode, or if you do duel battles in party mode, and if one of the players lands on a challenge space. They're very easy to do and clear, and not very memorable either. I honestly kind of forgot these were in the game if I'm being honest with you. Number 60, Crank to Rank. Say hello to Mario Party 8's version of Button Mashers, the Wiimote Shakers. All you have to do is shake the Wiimote like mad, and you win. Which, does that mean what I think it means? Number 59, Attention Grabber. It's a Wiimote Shaker. Number 58, At the Chomp Wash. It's a Wiimote Shaker. Number 57, Shake It Up. It's a Wiimote Shaker. At least it mimics the right motion, though. Number 56, Pumper Cars. It's a Wiimote Shaker. Kinda. I guess it's more of a Wiimote pumper, but still, it feels about the same. Number 55, Superstar Showdown. Imagine the nerves of the developers for making the final battle of story mode a Wiimote Shaker minigame. You just shake the Wiimote to charge your blast, and then unload on Bowser, while also dodging his projectiles. The projectiles can also feel a little weird to dodge too. Just a very weak final boss fight. Maybe only slightly better than Mario Party 7's. Number 54, Snow Way Out. There's a lot of solo player assaulting the team of 3 minigames down here, aren't there? Well, once again, this one does feel very imbalanced, and once again in the solo player's favor. And it's weird because I don't even think it's that bad moving as the team of 3 either. However, you really have to be careful around those slippery patches of ice, because sometimes the ice particles that linger around from the solo player's snowballs can be enough to freeze you and slide yourself off the roof, even if the snowballs don't make direct contact with you, which is just kind of frustrating. Number 53, Glacial Meltdown. It's a survival knockout game, but it's not very exciting or fun to play. Jumping on the buzzy beetle shells and tossing them is very awkward and hard to do. Plus you have the ice physics, which are never fun to deal with either. This kind of game is usually done well in Mario Party, but this just isn't one of those times. Number 52, Star Carnival Bowling. It's bowling with a Wiimote, and surprisingly, it doesn't feel good. I don't really see how this game feels as badly as it does, especially considering how much better the bowling controls are in Wii Sports. In fact, here's a tip to make your Star Carnival bowling experience better. Turn off the Wii, take out Mario Party 8, put in Wii Sports, and play Wii Sports Bowling instead. Trust me, you'll have a better time. Number 51, Frozen Assets. I want to like this game because it has elements of Mario Party 5's Frozen Frenzy, but since the crystals are randomized in the ice blocks, not to mention how they bounce out of the ice blocks, it's a bit luck-based. You can fight your opponent for possession of the crystals, but the fighting kind of feels a bit clunky as well, making for a bit of an awkward time. Number 50, Bob-ombs Away. What you see here is pretty much what you get. Feel like the single player has the advantage since the bob-omb bouncing can be a bit unpredictable, so it may throw off the team of 3 a bit. But at the end of the day, I'm not really crazy about this game on either side. Number 49, Gun the Runner. Pretty typical 1 versus 3 game. Solo player tries to reach the end while the team of 3 tries to stop them. Feel like the single player has the advantage because the team needs to be coordinated in their stalling efforts. Otherwise, the Lone Ranger can just try to power through some of the invincibility frames to make progress. Number 48, Balancing Act. We have another Wiimote shaker, but I'm cutting this one some slack because I like how they try to introduce a bit of moderation to this one with some of the obstacles you have to avoid along the way. However, you will likely still win if you shake like crazy. Appreciate the effort in being a little different though. Number 47, Flagging Rights. Single player, Shy Guy says, that's also a high score game. It's okay and reads motion well enough, and that's all I have to really say about it. Number 46, Puzzle Pillars. I want to like this minigame more than I actually do because it's this title's puzzle game, but I just don't really click with this one that much, and it largely comes down to just me making random movements and hoping that something works. Not really too fun as a result. Number 45, Sugar Rush. Placing the toppings in the exact right places can surprisingly be a bit difficult at times. And with how fast this minigame moves as a 2 versus 2 game, any little mistake can be detrimental. In fact, I actually kind of prefer the dual version of this more. It's not terrible, but far from the best match the sample type of minigame. Number 44, Punch-a-Bunch. I don't hate the motion controls for this, and I think the idea of charging your punches is a unique idea and implementation, but this game goes way too fast and ends way too quickly. I also feel really badly for the poor Bowser statue.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, hey Slim Bowser, what are you doing here?
Oh, you know, I'm just doing the usual, chillin' like a villain.
Oh. Good one, Slim Bowser.
Yeah. So hey, I wanted to ask you, why did you give that Bowser minigame such a low ranking? What's up with that?
I don't know, Slim Bowser. I guess Hudson Soft just wasn't feeling Bowser minigames anymore. Which is a shame, because there were actually some good Bowser minigames in the last game. I guess they kind of just lost the Bowser fever, huh?
I guess so. That makes me mad.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it. I mean, there'll be some great Bowser minigames in the future. Heck, you'll even be playable in the future.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, why don't you come back when you're playable? Maybe we can do a little bit of a teamwork effort when it comes to those lists.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Okay, well, just let me know whenever you need me. I'll be waiting over there looking badass.
Yeah, sure thing. That might make Mario Party 10 a little more enjoyable at least. Number 43, Flip the Chimp. Now this is probably a surprise. This was my least favorite minigame the first time I ranked Mario Party 8, but as you can see, I've come around on this one a bit over the years, and I don't think it's as bad as people, my past self included, made it out to be. The trick is to focus your eyesight on one very specific part of the screen. Namely, the top of the screen on the side your monkey is currently on. And don't move anything until you see something fall, and when it does, switch your monkey and repeat the process until the game is over. With that being said, the motion does feel a little delayed, which is why this isn't higher. But during my stream series of Mario Party 8, I actually kind of got on a roll with this game and started appreciating it a bit more. It's nothing amazing, of course, but not the plague I used to think it was. You just have to really get in the right mindset for it. Number 42, Road to Victory. Well, it's better than Paddle Battle at least, although that's not really saying much. It's a bit of a Wiimote shaker, but you have to do it in moderation with your partner, so you don't overdo your paddling on one side and make your boat go sideways. It's okay. Number 41, Eyebrawl. Give me Eyesore from Mario Party 3 any day, but this game isn't terrible. The sensor bar could give you some trouble if you spin your Wiimote too wildly, and part of the minigame will be spent trying to find the right rhythm to use. But other games that require fast moving and the Wiimote pointing are definitely worse than this. Number 40, Winner or Dinner. I think I had this minigame pretty low on my last list as well, but in reality, it's probably not that bad. It's a pretty simple coin collect-a-thon with your partner. The piranha plants can be a bit annoying, especially with their eating range, but it's not like you get eliminated or anything. Also, shoutouts to the minigame ending cutscene where everyone just dies, I guess. Number 39, Grabbin' Gold. Another pretty simple coin minigame. Although the idea is kinda clever, I feel like this is very much in the Team of Three's favor. Their baskets are smaller, but they have more coverage of the field in case one of the players gets hit by an obstacle. Also, the left and right movement can be a little iffy with motion controls. It's not bad, but nothing amazing. Number 38, Lava Lobbers. It's a dual minigame where you shoot fireballs back and forth and try to hit your opponent 3 times. You have 2 different shots, and the goal is to use them in conjunction with each other to throw off your opponent and catch them with a snipe. Not a bad idea in concept, but the game doesn't really stand out for me too much. Number 37, Alpine Assault. I got excited when I first saw this minigame because it gave me some vibes of Mario Party 7's Snow Ride, but with a more interesting course and concept. And for the most part, that is what you get here. What brings this down for me, though, is the motion controls. They honestly don't work too bad, but if you don't take the turns or trick off the ramps optimally, and if you run into a wall, you really get slowed down, and it can be extremely hard to recover after a mistake like that, and not to mention easy to do if you get off balance with your motion turning. I want to like this one more, I really do, but I'm so conflicted with its controls. It's one of those, when it works for you it feels great, but if it doesn't, it's frustrating scenarios, which only puts it in the okay range for me. Number 36, Picture Perfect. Interesting, another match the sample minigame that's probably lower than what you guys were expecting. The game itself is fine, I guess, but my issue with it is how the panels randomly shuffle around. The single player only needs to set 4 panels, while the team of 3 needs to set 9, approximately 3 per player. But since the team's panels are smaller, it can be a little harder for them to get the full picture together. And since there is no pattern or order to how the panels shift around, it can feel like a bit of a crapshoot at times. I swear, there were instances where the single player got all 4 panels done, while I was still waiting for 1 square on the 3x3 grid to even switch to the right panel for the first time. And that's just not fun when you are forced with odds like that. Also, because you have to point and click, once again the Wiimote and sensor need to be acting in sync well enough so you can lock in the correct panel properly, and not accidentally touch the one right next to it instead. It's a shame, I usually really like these games, but even the little flaws can make this one a bit harder to enjoy. Number 35, Table Menace. Really not surprised they tried to take advantage of Wii Motion for some extra sports games in this title. At least this one is better than the bowling game, but I'm still not amazed by it. It's less brainless than Wii Sports Tennis feels at times, and actually does feel kind of faithful to table tennis as a whole. Probably just a bit above the okay tier of minigames. Number 34, Scooter Pursuit. Remember Cannonball Fun from Mario Party 6? Well, Scooter Pursuit actually fixes the main issue I had with that game. Instead of being the first to 5 points, it's just a free-for-all shootout until time is up, with the winner being who scores the most hits, which is exactly what I wanted from Cannonball Fun. With that being said though, this game still doesn't wow me too much, and while the motion controls aren't bad, they don't really add much either. It's really just bobbing and weaving back and forth while shooting between different targets, so it's not very exciting and kind of easy against AI. Number 33, Crops and Robbers. With how much I like Clean Team and Mario Party 6, you would think this game would be higher, but I don't know. I do like the team games where both players have their individual tasks to perform, and this game meets that mold for sure, but the layouts for this one just don't really do it for me as much. Also, I feel like the motion controls were kind of unnecessarily shoehorned in here as well. Number 32, Lava or Leave 'em. A very simple knockout survival game. Nothing is really wrong with it, but I don't think it really does anything super unique or interesting either. Just a meet the quota type of game, I guess you could say. Number 31, Lob to Rob. It's a target shooting game. A very easy target shooting game at that. Yeah, once again, this idea has worked before, and the Wii motion works fine as well, but it just doesn't really have anything major going for it either. It's fine. Number 30, Locomotives. The next two games will really get you to test your ability to pay attention to several different points on the map, as your goal is to make sure none of your balloons get popped from your runaway trains by changing the direction before they collide into your balloons. Honestly, I really love this minigame concept, but it can be a bit stressful at times, especially the further you get into it. You also have to depend on keeping your cursor in control and not misclicking. Otherwise, you may not get to the train in time, and any stumble like that can really throw you off your game here. Number 29, Chomping Frenzy. I actually kind of like the idea of this bonus minigame. You have to keep your chain chomps happy by giving them the right items before they get too angry. And the longer the game goes on, the more chain chomps you have to deal with. For a high score game like this, I think it has a very sensible progression here, and it can be really fun to see how far you can get. But like the previous game, it can get very stressful the longer it goes on, especially since you have to cycle through all of your items, and you aren't entirely sure what your chomp is going to ask for next. Honestly, if the cycling system was a bit better, I could see this scoring much higher on my list, but at least it made the top 30, I suppose. Number 28, Paint Misbehavin'. Wow, it's Splatoon before Splatoon. Kind of. This game is alright. In fact, I'd almost call it a much better version of Mario Party 3's Baby Bowser Broadside. The winner is likely going to be decided by an incredibly small margin here, though, so it's not a 2 vs 2 or duel game I'm usually hoping for, but it works well enough for what it is, and I don't mind playing it. Number 27, Mario Matrix. Here's another point-and-click game that I think overall works pretty well despite some potential Wii Motion censor bar weirdness you could experience. Really just a who's quicker on the draw sort of exercise, which is fine. Number 26, Swing Kings. Some could call this a lazier version of Mario Party 5's Dinger Derby, but I actually kind of prefer this to Dinger Derby. The motion control works well, and although the layup pitches make the hits a lot easier, maybe a bit too easy, it's probably better that it's easier to do, because the motion control shenanigans could screw you up as a result. So you're not going to see me complaining about this one too much. Number 25, In the Nick of Time. It's a 4-player version of Mario Party 5's Clock Watchers, which I like because you don't have to worry about your partners messing you up here. Getting your clock hands to stop accurately on a certain point can be an issue with how sensitive the Wii motion can be, though, and that's probably my one major hang-up with this one. Otherwise, I think it's pretty good. Number 24, Cartastrophe. Cartwheeled was already a good minigame in Mario Party 7, and this is really more of the same. And if anything, I actually prefer the general feel of this game more than its predecessor. However, once again, Wii Motion is the major catalyst here, and that catalyst comes into play in that extremely tight turn midway through the course. You have 2 laps, so even if you mess it up, you can at least try to rectify your mistake in the second run. But I swear, no matter how many times I play this game, that turn always throws me off, and I feel like if I wasn't already trying to stay on track with the Wii Motion, it wouldn't be as big of an issue. Number 23, Canyon Cruisers. A very short and sweet bonus time trial game that kind of deals with the same issues as the last game when you think about it. Starts off fine and feels like a game that could be fun to optimize for a high-scoring new record if you're into that stuff, but when you get to the end of the course, you're almost going too fast to fit in between the really narrow openings. And since you need motion controls for your steering, it's not too uncommon to crash into walls and obstacles here. Nothing amazing, but it's one of the better bonus games at the very least. Number 22, Rotation Station. This could be a bit of a rogue pick for some people, but you guys know me and I love my platforming games, and this game just so happens to be one of them, with the major premise and gimmick here is that you have to rotate the camera around the space to find the path to advance further. I can get why someone may not be into this game too much, as rotating while moving could be seen as either a hindrance or pace breaker, but it's never really bothered me too much personally. It is definitely annoying whenever you miss a jump due to perspective or misjudging the angle, forcing you to restart or redo a portion of the section again, not to mention those moments where you may accidentally rotate the camera too far or not enough, causing you to waste some more time. But for me, this is one that I actually enjoy trying to get some new records and high scores out of, so I felt like the higher ranking was a bit more natural for me. Number 21, Power Trip. This is actually the last 1 vs 3 minigame in Mario Party 8 we have to talk about, and yeah, this game didn't do so hot in this category, did it? This one seems and feels like pretty standard fare for 1 vs 3 minigames though, with the team of 3 trying to avoid the solo player who's trying to eliminate them. As you might expect, the solo player uses motion controls, and because of that, I'd probably prefer being on the team of 3 in this one. But I'll say the motion controls aren't too bad, and you're big enough in this game where even driving suboptimally could throw off your opponents anyway, so kinda works. Not the best example of this trope, but it's definitely the best 1 vs 3 minigame in Mario Party 8. Number 20, Surf's Way Up. Remember Target Tag from Mario Party 7? This is like the same exact idea, but it's a bit longer and I think it probably works better as a dual minigame anyway. It does have motion controls, and I wish the Bowser target wouldn't completely set your progress back to 0, just in case something doesn't work right, but it's a solid game nonetheless. Number 19, Spectre Inspector. This game is actually really cool in concept. You're trying to find 3 creatures before your opponent, and the creatures are hiding inside random objects in this big mansion room. Whenever an object shakes, there is a possibility for one of the creatures to be inside the said object. What kind of brings this game down a bit though is the fact that it is essentially a luck-based minigame, since some objects may have nothing and others will send ghosts at you to slow you down, so you have no real control over which object is correct or not. Also, you use the D-pad for movement, with the Wii Motion for directing the flashlight and picking a location to search, and that control scheme does feel a bit awkward to utilize here. I think if they handled this game a bit differently, this could easily be one of the best minigames in Mario Party 8. But still, it's a pretty fun and unique experience, and I will give it credit for that. Number 18, Bumper Balloons. Funny thing about this one, I'm not really too crazy about it as a 2 vs 2 minigame. Why? Well, you don't really have a lot of space to roam, and the arena is pretty small to accommodate 4 players. And sometimes you may accidentally hit an opponent's balloon, which could give them an automatic win or just a huge advantage. However, as a dual minigame, which this game also happens to be, I think the arena works a lot better and you don't have to worry about dividing stuff up with your teammate as much. So you'll be running into other players a lot less, making the game a little more fun as a result. Still maybe a high placement for this game, but I do really like the idea for this one. I just wish it was a little bigger in terms of scale. Number 17, Burning Lassos. This seems like a game that would be hell to control with motion controls, but honestly I think it does pretty good for itself. Not my favorite duel experience in Mario Party 8, but it gets the job done, and the Wild West theme is kind of intriguing for me. We haven't exactly seen anything like this before, after all. Number 16, Aim of the Game. Okay, well this game does seem a lot like Hyper Sniper, a game in Mario Party 6 I really enjoy. This game has one major flaw that keeps it a bit lower on the list, and out of the top 10 for me. And that flaw is, it's way too easy to get a perfect score. 50 points and 4 times 2 multipliers, or 2 50s with 3 times 2 multipliers, and you win this game and everyone else should theoretically win along with you. I think the problem here is that there are just too many cards in play, so getting the perfect score is not really a challenge. And if you somehow don't get it, you kind of just let it slip from your hands anyway. Which is a shame, because this honestly should be one of the best minigames in the game if it wasn't for that one problem. Because, yeah, this is just like Hyper Sniper. I still like it though, but probably more because it's a free win as opposed to thinking it's an amazing minigame. Number 15, Trial by Tile. A very short bonus minigame in the extras zone, something to kind of test your attention to detail and how fast you can notice the correct answer. But it's pretty fun, and I wish it was a bit longer. Thankfully, Super Mario Party would include a game like this as a future minigame, so at least there's that. Number 14, Settle It in Court. Unfortunately, I don't know if any minigame in Mario Party will ever retrieve the awesome glory that was the first game's Bomb Skip Ball, but I do feel like this game was at least close. In this game, you're making free throws and using the Wii Motion to time your shots along with the meter on top of the screen. And the closer you are to the middle of the meter and basket, the more likely you'll get the point. You also have to sometimes pass the ball to a Goomba to make a layup, which it's probably a bit unnecessary, but it does add another layer to the game, I guess. Pretty interesting duel game, probably not my favorite, but definitely one of the best ones in this game. Number 13, King of the Thrill. As plain and basic as this game might seem, I do like the idea here. You and your partner team up in 2 separate 1v1s, where you must knock out the other player in a very simple knockout and survival game. Once the 2 battles end, the winners will go up the ladders and face off in the bigger arena. However, if you and your teammate win, it's over, because your team won anyway. But if one of you lost, there is still one more chance to get the W in the final battle. Definitely a case where I like the idea more than the game itself, but I still really enjoy what they have here. And this one has always stood out to me because of how unique it is. Number 12, Water Ski Spree. I kind of slept on this minigame for a really long time, but this is a pretty solid coin minigame that honestly uses the Wii Motion quite well. You also need good eyesight and attention to detail, as when you get to sections with 2 ramps, coins will alternate between the 2 sides, so you have to choose the right direction if you want a good coin payout. Really solid minigame that I wish I had noticed a lot sooner, honestly. Number 11, Moped Mayhem. The final bonus minigame is here, and yeah, while this game is no Mario Kart, this game easily caught my eye when I first checked out the extras zone, and I was blown away by the notion of having a 30-person Mario character race on mopeds. What keeps this out of the top 10 though is I kinda wish you could pick some of the other characters, as they include a lot of characters that are not playable in this game, or even other Mario Party games, and I think it would be kinda fun to race as a Thwomp, Womp, Bandit, or Penguin, among many other NPCs. Kind of a missed opportunity. Also, while there are 3 courses, the last course can be an absolute nightmare to race on. Not to mention the controls of the moped aren't exactly ideal either. They aren't the worst racing controls, they just rely really heavily on strict turning rules and using plenty of brake drifting. When you have it down though, this game can be a lot of fun, and the novelty of racing so many random NPC characters is a silly but memorable experience. Plus, as usual, it can be really fun to set new records on these courses as well. Number 10. Well guys, we've once again made it to the top 10, and I gotta say, this has been a very tough list to construct in terms of how to rank certain games and scenarios. However, this is where things are going to get really difficult, because not much is really separating these games from each other if I'm being completely honest, as these 10 games were ones that I felt very confident in being in the top 10. But the order is a much different story. To start out, I'm going with Cosmic Slalom as my number 10 pick. This game gave me very strong Motor Rooter vibes from Mario Party 3, but at the very least this controls way better. And it uses motion controls too, which, considering my feelings on those, yeah, not too shabby Mario Party 8. It probably helps that you don't go upside down in this version either, but still, an improvement is still an improvement. I also like the strategy of how you can use your boosts in this game too. You have a finite amount, so you can't boost the entire time, but you can use them as a measure to recover from a mistake, or strategically save them all for the end of a race if you feel you are good at dodging the obstacles normally, and just want to power to the end, which gives this game some freedom of selection. It can be a little hard to control at times, but it's still a welcome change from a majority of the other motion-controlled games in this title. Number 9. Another racing game that uses motion controls quite efficiently is Lean Mean Ravine, another one of our remaining 2 vs 2 candidates. Both players move their vehicle in tandem while also trying to avoid the water geysers and getting boosts from the various ramps around the course. I honestly just really like the aesthetic of this game. It's not a backdrop you see too often, and it's a game that just honestly gives me some nice chill vibes all around. Plus, I don't think it's really too bad to control either. Number 8. We've had quite the journey with motion controls throughout this video, I'm sure. So let's have a few small samples of different motion-based actions in this creative dual minigame Breakneck Building. I think what I like about this one, in addition to the motion being relatively simple to use, is that it tests you on a few different aspects of it, from a sawing motion, a hammering motion, and a painting motion. And I think that's kind of cool. Gives it kind of an obstacle course vibe, or something like Camp Yukiki from Mario Party 7. I kind of wish there was a little more to it though, but it's a nice fresh sample of how motion controls can actually be quite effective in a game like Mario Party. I just wish the rest of the game was a little more understanding of that philosophy. Number 7. Let's take a break from motion controls to focus on a game that's a bit more traditional with controls and minigame concepts. And that game is the 2 vs 2 Funfest Grabby Gridiron. I know people really want a Mario football game, and I feel like these Mario Party minigames might be the closest we'll ever get to that if I'm being frank. But hey, despite that, this game is actually pretty good. You and your teammate must work together to grab the reigning footballs and bring them back to your goal, watching out for the other team that will be doing the same thing, also being able to take and steal the ball from you as well. Now, if you've ever seen a football bounce, you know that they can bounce all over the place, and this minigame definitely shows and exaggerates that fact, so getting a hold of one of the balls can actually be quite the challenge. In fact, it's probably the hardest part of this minigame if I'm being honest. Thankfully though, you have a partner that can help you out with this task, so your ordeals will not be exclusive, and even if you get off to a bad start, it's the first of 5 points, so you have plenty of time to catch up and finish strong if necessary. It's a pretty cool game. Number 6. Although I do wish the aim of the game was a little harder to get a perfect score on, which in turn would make it the definitive target shooting game of this title, Mario Party 8 also had another battle game that has a very similar premise, but actually succeeded at making it a little less free, we'll say. And that game is Snipe for the Picking. This game is pretty much the same idea as aim of the game when you think about it. Shoot the targets, and whoever has the most points by the end is the winner. Each target, though, is divided up by a couple of sections, and each section has a different point value, with the highest being 100. The sections are also different sizes and will be located in different places as well, meaning that you can't just keep your reticle in one specific location to farm points. Also, each target has a time limit, so you need to keep your cursor moving and shooting, and you'll need to work for your victory if you want to take this one home. I feel like while this game can be difficult at times because of those factors, it still feels at least fair, and you still have time to turn a bad start around if you remain laser focused on your objective. It's a challenge with a very nice skill threshold, and a very solid battle minigame experience for me personally. Number 5. Duel games had a very interesting identity in this title, because while there are some unique games you can only play in the duel category, there are plenty of regular free-for-all and 2 vs 2 minigames that also get put into this category as well. And while we have seen a few of the unique ones in the top 10, this one was good enough to make it into the top 5. And that one is Wing and a Scare. The controls for this one are very simple. You rotate your Wiimote around, which in turn moves your plane in that direction and into that formation. You'll have to navigate through some holes so that the wings of your plane don't crash into the wall, otherwise you'll bounce back and lose a bit of time in the process. This game just feels really good to play, and that's all I really have to say about it. The plane moves very smooth along with the motion of the Wiimote, assuming that you aren't just very quickly jerking it around or anything, and the game never really asks you to do any motions that feel incredibly out of reach or obsessive, and that's a bar you probably want to be aiming for in the series' first motion control based title, so hey, good work Hudson Soft. Number 4. One of the things I love about a series like Mario Party is when you see the evolution of a concept or a minigame as you go throughout the series, and the different iterations it has had as a result. For number 4, let's take a look at Mario Party 8's iteration of a classic minigame, Platform Peril, in the form of Sick and Twisted. Maybe not the most appealing name of a minigame, but there is no doubt that this is pretty much a modern version of Platform Peril. And as you know, I'm actually a pretty big fan of that minigame. Sick and Twisted works in relatively the same way, although the main gimmick here is that the platforms will rotate and turn while you're making your jumps, and you also have to avoid bullet bills while you're jumping and moving around. Be especially careful of those bullet bills if you are too far to the right of the screen, as they may spawn on screen randomly and catch you off guard before you even have a chance to react to them. However, that doesn't really bother me too much because unlike Platform Peril, This is not a race. Rather, just a contest to see who survives the platforming gauntlet, so focus more on just moving and jumping and not who gets to the end first. This game also doesn't utilize motion controls either, which I think is more than fine. Just because you have them doesn't mean you have to use them, you know. Number 3. Alright, it's Saturday night, I have no date, a 2-liter bottle of Shasta, and my All Rush mixtape. Let's rock out with some Space Invaders. Or in the case of Mario Party 8, its battle game equivalent, Saucer Swarm. Yeah, this game has always given me major Space Invader vibes. Although, more horizontal than vertical, of course. Your goal is to shoot as many enemy saucers as possible, using the Wiimote motion to tilt your vehicle left and right, and the 2 button to fire. I find the best strategy in this game is to tilt slowly from left to right, and then right to left, mashing the button to get as many hits as possible, while also clearing your field so the saucers don't get too close, and cause you to get stunned when they touch you. Of course though, that's just the way I do it. Definitely do what's best for you at the end of the day. I like this game because it's simple and to the point, and it can be fun to try and get high scores here as well. And I think the developers knew that because this game is also in the test for the best mode too. Also, even though there is Wii motion, it's minimal and doesn't really get in the way much. Also, here's a fun fact. Not only is this game the best battle game of Mario Party 8, it's also the best dual minigame as well, so nicely done, Saucer Swarm. Taken 2 in one go. Number 2. One big criticism I've had for a lot of these Mario Party 8 minigames, or at the very least one of the main factors I focused on anyway, is the concept of motion controls. This game was the first one to highlight the use of motion control after all, and although I wouldn't say that I hate motion control or anything like that, I do think that this should at least be used sparingly, or at the very least they should be well integrated in the game to the point where they don't interfere or mess with the game in question. In other words, if you only need to move left or right, something that can easily be done with the D-pad or control stick, maybe you don't need motion controls for that game. Number 2 on our list is a prime example of this, showing that you can achieve minigame excellence without any motion controls whatsoever, and do it with a relatively safe and easy concept as well. Enter this game's Mosh Pit Playroom. This game literally has one goal: collect all 50 of your colored balls and do it before the other players. Balls rain throughout the arena, and anytime you come into contact with one, you add it to your stock, and that's it. It's a race to see who can collect all of them first, trying to make the best use out of moving throughout the arena, and trying not to lose track of your own colors in the maze of everyone else's. This game's always been a standout for me, and one I hope gets selected than roulette whenever I'm playing a 4-player minigame. It's a nice dose of both chaos, but also simplicity that I think makes a Mario Party minigame enjoyable. And I wish the developers realized that more, instead of focusing so hard on bringing back luck-based games and button mashers all of the time. You can have a really awesome minigame with something as simple as this, and I think that's pretty incredible. Number 1. This was a really hard number 1 to determine for me, as I honestly thought it was going to go to Mosh Pit Playroom this time, especially after doing my Mario Party 8 stream playthrough. However, after reflecting on this a couple of times, I've ultimately decided to recrown defending champion Booting Gallery as the best minigame in Mario Party 8. This game is really just a variation of Mario Party 7's Spider Stomp, but now it's done not as an overhead shooter like before, and now more of a first-person shooter instead. Or I guess to be more specific, kind of like those old Super Scope games that you played on the older consoles. However, with the Wiimote's point-and-click interface, this is actually a very natural progression and evolution of this type of minigame, and I'm glad the developers realized that when they were creating the games for this installment. It's also nice because unlike Spider Stomp, you won't have to worry about getting in the way of your teammate either, allowing you both to divide up the work efficiently and take out the booze and leader. I guess the one thing that could set this game back a bit is that it does feel a bit shorter than Spider Stomp, and perhaps a bit easier as well, but I think it really works as a 2 versus 2 minigame, and is often one that really comes to mind for me when playing this game because it kind of tells a story as you're going through it. And with that, Booting Gallery is my pick for best minigame of Mario Party 8. Well guys, we've made it through Mario Party 8, and boy, what an experience it was. This game was actually a pretty difficult game to make rankings for, if I'm being honest. Not only was it hard getting things locked down for the middle of the list, but even the top 10 had me going back and forth on a lot of decisions, until I ultimately ended up with what I had here. Again, I can only stress that this is just my opinion, and I'm willing to bet you guys feel differently on some of my choices as well. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. So if you want to get your thoughts out here, feel free to leave your input in the comments section below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Also, to once again get out that all-famous plug of mine, if you would like to watch me play more Mario Party, every Friday on my Twitch channel at around 2 PM Eastern, I play Mario Party for an event I like to call, Thank God It's Mario Party Friday. I'm playing through the entire series to get me ready for these lists, as I plan to rank the minigames in each installment, and currently I just started the Mario Party Island Tour part of this project, so stop on by if you want to see me play that mess of a game. At the end of each game, I do a stream session where I play through each individual minigame, and that's ultimately where these lists start to stem from, so if you want to give input for these future lists, it may not be a bad idea to stop on over for one of those streams, just saying. And speaking of the next list, we're still going to be following the numbers, at least for right now anyway. So next up, we'll have Mario Party 9, the first of the car era of Mario Party. However, Mario Party 9 I think is very underappreciated, and I think the game does have some standout games to play, so I think it should still be an interesting list to look at. Plus, we do get back to over 80 minigames again, so yay, long lists. Woo. This has been SlimKirby. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you fine people later. And always remember to party on. Later, folks.